In the next 40 minutes, I'll walk you through everything you need to know to go from React developer to Next.js developer. No fluff, just the essentials. We'll start by setting up a Next.js project, then move into routing and how Firebase routes replace React router. We'll go into route handlers and server actions, the difference between server and client components and when to use each for performance, how layouts help you structure your app cleanly. By the end of this video, you exactly know how to use Next.js to build production-ready full-stack React applications faster and cleaner than ever before. So let's jump right in. Okay, so this is an empty VS Code right here, and to start Next.js, just like you do your normal React, you are going to open your terminal. So to open your terminal in VS Code, you can just press Ctrl J. Now this pops up to your terminal. The next thing is to write the command to start Next.js, and the command is what? npx create-next-app at latest, and then this is the name of your folder, and then you press enter. Alright, so now we need to install the following packages. Just press Y and click on enter. Alright, so now they're asking us a question: would us like to use the recommended Next.js default? Yeah, we can use that. TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind, CSS, app route. Yeah, just click on enter, and then it's going to install all the dependencies and the dev dependencies that we're going to need for Next.js. So right now, Next.js have created the app for us. As you can see, that this is the folder which we had in the command my app. Yeah, so this is it here. Now to start the Next.js project, what we need to do is to go inside this folder, and we can do that by pressing cd and then my app, and then click on enter. And the next thing is to say npm run dev, and then this is going to run the development server. Yeah, so now we can go into localhost 3000. And yeah, you can see we have this boilerplate here. Alright, to change this, we'll just go into page.tsx. But before that, let's talk about routing. In React, routing was typically handled by using a third-party library. Most of them which we use is React Router or React Router DOM. Now, this will require manual installation, and we are going to configure component like browser router and then explicitly define paths with route, and then the attribute path is equals to, you know how it is done with React. But then in Next.js, routing is built in. It is file system based, and it handles both client-side navigation and server-side rendering capabilities natively. So basically, we can just enter inside this app. As you can, when we installed Next.js, we allowed app router. I don't know. Okay, they didn't add it here, but then we allowed app router. Now, this page right here is our home page. So if I clear everything inside here, and then add in my components, and then if I name this home page and save this, if I go into this, you're going to see, yeah, so as you can see, we have this here. We have home page, which we entered in page.tsx. Now we want to create a route. Let's say we want to create the about page. What we need to do is inside this app folder, you create a new folder. You name it the route name that you want. So you can call this about, and then inside about, you just add in this page.tsx. Remember that this page.tsx is a standardized way. You cannot use it anyhow. So this is the default in Next.js, and then you add in your components, and then we can call this about page. Now to see this about page, you can just go into here and then come here and go into about, and then you should see the about page. Yeah, as you can see, we have the about page. So that is all about routing. As simple as that in Next.js. In React, if you needed a backend API like to handle form submissions, database queries, you will typically have to create a separate server using a framework like Express. Now, this will involve setting up new Node.js projects for the server, installing and configuring Express, handling routes and middlewares and all that stuff. Now, in Next.js, you can handle all this using a route handler file. You understand? Inside the app directory segment to define the API endpoint. So now let me just show you a simple get request. Now to create a get request, now what we just need to do, let's say we want to create a get request with something like that will look like this /API/users that is going to get all users. Now to create something like this, in this my app folder, I'll just create a new folder called this API, and then inside this API folder, create a new folder, call it users, and then inside this users, I'm going to create a new file. Now for route handlers, we're going to be using routes instead of page. So take note, we're going to be using route.ts. Now take note, in pages, when you want to create a page or when you create a route in a page, what you do is the folder name and then page.tsx. But now in route handlers of to create APIs, we're going to say /API/ the folder's name. That is, sorry. Yeah, /API/users and then route.ts. Now inside here, we can write our get request. Now, first what we're going to do is probably normally we get all this from the database, but since we don't have a database and I don't want to make this video so long, let me just make a simple, or let me just get it from here, a simple user object, array of objects. So yeah, now the next thing, let me disable this, sorry. All right, so now what you are going to do in this our case is to say what, export async function get, and then you add in request of a type of request. Yeah, now inside here we're going to, just for an example, we're going to return the data as JSON response. So we'll just say return response.json, and then we pass in the users and probably a status of 200. Now you can see how simple this is. Now we can go into our this thing here and then /API/users, and let's see if we're going to get that get request. Yeah, as you can see, we've gotten that API running just like that, just the simple lines, and you can see that everything works. So this is how route handlers work in Next.js. This is for pages, and then this is for API routes. Now if we want to call this in our client, let's say in this about page, and just so you know, this page is a server-side page, is a server component by default. To make it client-side, we're going to be using the directive use client, but it is advisable to make all your pages server-side. And you cannot use effect or use state in server-side in server component. Just know that anything that involves hooks or interactivity, we don't do that in server component. Now to use this get request in server component, how are we going to do it? You can just come in here and create a function and say const, let's say fetch users. This is going to sorry, I don't know what I'm missing. I'm missing syntax right now. Yeah, I think the syntax is correct. Yeah, so const response, this should be equals to await fetch, and then we're going to fetch slash API slash users. Yeah, just like this. And then we can say const users will be equals to await res.json, just like this. And then we can return users. Now inside here we can say const users will be equals to, we'll make this async, and await fetch users, and then we can console.log users to be users. Let's just see how this will work. I'm doubting, but let's just see. Now let's go back to about. Sorry, let's go to the about page. Okay, so it failed to pass URL from API slash users. I don't know, let's see. Okay, so I don't know what went wrong, but then I just refreshed the page, and let's go into the console. And as you can see, we have an array of two. We have two objects inside this array, and you can see that the users are gotten from the API without any use effect or anything, just pure server-side code. So you can see the power of Next.js in action, and we can use these users inside our code anyhow we want to do it. Yeah, so this is just route handlers. I can show you post requests, but I don't want to make this video so long. If you want me to make a full video on route handlers and Next.js in general, just let me know. Okay, so I've shown you a basic usage of route handlers, but now to make you understand more, let's build a simple to-do, very simple. So what we are going to do right now is, first we're going to declare our folder structure. So this one we had API users. Let me just delete these users. This was just for an example. All right, now in this API, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this folder to-dos, and then inside this to-dos, just like I've said before, route.ts. Now inside this route.ts, we're going to be creating a post request. Now in React, you are going to create a post request with the Express and whatever, but this one is simple. We're just going to say export async function post, like this, and then request is going to be a type of request, and just so you know, I've added MongoDB. This is not a MongoDB tutorial, so that's why I didn't show how to do it, but just to let you know, and I've added a to-do model. This is MongoDB whatever. Yeah, now just to let you understand, now first what we're going to do is to connect to our database. So await connect from Mongoose, from our library, and then after I've connected, we're going to be accepting the title of the to-do from the client. So what I'm going to say, we're going to destructure the title. This is going to be equal to await request dot JSON, just like this, and then we can say const to do will be equal to await, and then you call the database model to do dot create, and then you pass in the title, just like this. Then the last thing you are going to do is to return response dot JSON, and then you pass in the to do, or can pass it directly. Yeah, and then you pass in the to do, just like this. So with this, you have created a very basic you have made a very basic post request. And now we can check this, we can try this out by making a client-side code. Yeah, so for that we're going to work on our front end right now. Yeah, so it's going to be on our home page, and let me just copy a style. So let's see. Yeah, so let me just edit this. All right, so this is a very basic boilerplate. We have an input and we have a button. So these are states which we are going to add right now. So we'll just come here and say const add const new to do, comma set new to do is going to be equal to new state. And I don't know if I've said it before, but if we are using use states, we are going to be make this component a client-side component. All right, so I can clear this React. We don't need this React. So to make it a client-side component, since we are going to be working with interactivity, to make this a client-side component, I'm going to add the use client directive on top, just like this. It's not going to be square bracket, sorry, it's going to be an empty string. Yeah, that's what's given there. And now we have to make a function that is going to call our API route, which is this route handler here. We're going to make a function called add to do. So we're going to come under here, and then we'll say const add to do. This is going to be an asynchronous component, asynchronous function rather, async. And then if new to do, if no new to do, we're going to return. So we don't need to do anything. So yeah, just return. So if not, now we're going to call our API. So we'll say const response is going to be await fetch. So Next.js have this inbuilt fetch API which you can use. We don't need to do anything. So /API /todos, which is our folder. Remember, /API /todos. That is how Next.js work. Sorry, let me make this right. Yeah, and now we're going to add in our method. So the method is going to be method of post, and then the body, we're going to add our body. And remember, we're accepting what? We're accepting the title from the body, which means that we have to pass the title here also. So to do that, JSON.stringify. I'm sure you must have done this before as a React developer. Yeah, probably. So we're going to pass in the title as what? As the new to do, just like this. And then we can come in here and say const data will be equals to await the response dot JSON. just like this, and then you set the new to do back to this. Yeah, so just for now we can just console.log the data. Later we're going to like map it through all the other to-dos, but for now let's just console.log the data. So yeah, let's just see how it works. And yeah, just look our database. Let's go back to our database to show you that everything is empty. So it's not even connected yet. Yeah, so now let's go back to our home page. All right, so now we have this simple input field which we created. Here, this is the input field, and then we can add a to-do. Let's say walk the dog, and then click on add. So as you can see, we've got this data here. Walk the dog, completed false, and then the ID. Now if we go to our database, let's refresh this. Let's see if we're going to get the data. Yeah, so as you can see, we have to-dos, and then the title, the completed, and then the ID. Now this is very easy. You don't really need an extra Express server and all that. Yeah, so just fetch this API which we created here. Very simple. Connect to your database, and then you get the title from the objects, from the JSON objects which we passed here. Yeah, this is from the body, and use this create method of MongoDB to add it to the database. So this is just how you create a post request in Next.js. This is just to show you route handlers, how it works. And yeah, so the next thing I'm going to show you is how to use server actions to perform this same thing I did right now with route handlers. We can do other things, we can delete, we can do other things with it, but just to make I don't want to make this video so long. Yeah, the next thing is to show you how to use server actions to do this right now. So what are server actions? Server actions are a new feature in Next.js. It was introduced around that kind of version 13.4-ish. I can't remember the particular version, but around that 13.4 version. Currently we're in Next.js 16, by the way. Yeah, so it lets you run server-side code directly from your React components without using an API route or even a fetch call or a fetch call. Yeah, so it's just like functions that run on the server but can be called directly from the client through React built-in mechanism. Yeah. So Next.js is just going to automatically handle your network call and stuff like that. So how they work is just like you mark a function with use server, and then Next.js bundles that function to run only on the server. Yeah. So how are they different from route handlers? So they run backend logic directly from the component, while for the route handler, which I just showed you, we define API endpoints just like Express. As you can see, we have this normal, yeah, we have normal API route handlers. These are just normal post requests, get requests that we do normally in Express as well. And then the syntax, I'm going to show you how to do all of this. And why might you want to use server actions? There's no need to be having a route like /API/this/that. You don't need anything like fetch this. You don't need response.json. You don't need any JSON passing. And it's also type safe. Also, route handlers are type safe if you infer types there. So when should you not use server actions? If you need to expose a public API, like for example, a mobile app or web hooks. You might need a public API. So once you need a public API, do not use server actions. If you need fine control over HTTP responses, yeah, you don't need server actions. And if your app has a lot of client-only logic, probably it runs mostly as a single page application with client-side fetching, then you don't need server action. Yeah, but let me just show you how server actions work. So first, inside this our app component, we're going to, let me just clean this. Yeah, inside this app component, we're going to create a new folder. We're going to call that actions. Now, inside these actions, we can just create a new file, call it to do actions.ts. Now, this is where we are going to write all our actions concerning our to do. Now, the first thing you do in a server action file is to mark it as use server. Yeah, so this tells this file that we're actually writing server actions. And the next we're going to do is export a sync function. So I just creating a normal function, the way you create functions. Yeah, so add to do action, and then we're going to get the form data. Yeah, so just so you know, server actions work mostly with forms, so this is going to be a type of form data. Yeah, and then we're going to get the title from our form data. So say const title of the to do will be equals to form data dot get, and then adding the title. In our front end, I'm going to show you how we're going to do this. We're going to be using forms in front end, and then we can just add some type stuff to string, convert it to string if it is not a string, and then you trim it. All these are just additional things that we need to add. It's not really important. And then we just make some particular checks the way we code normally. So if no title, just return an error, return error, title is required, and then we connect to our database if we pass all these checks. So await connect to our database. Now the next thing we do is to save it just like we did in the route handler. So we'll call our model to do, let me import that, dot create, and then we pass in the title from the form data. And the only thing we need to do now is just to return success. So return success to be true. Yeah, so with this you are done creating your server action. The next we are going to do right now is to connect it to our front end. So let's go back to our home page, and then we're going to clear these inputs. Let's clear this one, we don't need it again. This one as well. Yeah, I'm not sure we need this. Now we're going to be using form. So that is how we work with server actions. And we can now clear this. We don't need this to be in a client side. We don't need this to be client side anymore. We're going to leave the home page as a server side component. I'm going to explain server side and client side components soon. So but it is recommended by Next.js that we make all our pages to be server side component, to be server component. And then if we want interactivity, we can create a components folder and then use external component as client, which we will then append into this server component. So like server component should be the base. Yeah, so just know that. And then the next we're going to do right now is inside this we're going to create a form. And then this form is going to have an input and a button, a button of type submit. Let me just copy it and paste it here. Yeah, so never underestimate this name here. This is the name in which we add in here. So the form data is getting this title. How is it going to get the title if you do not put this name? And if this name does not match this form data, it is not going to work. So this is just it. And then the next thing we need to declare here is the title. But let me just add a class name first. We're going to add an action. Yeah, so let me add an action. So this is server action in action. Yeah, so we can just call this add to do action. Yeah, import it there. Okay, so I am getting this error. And why am I getting this? This is because of this is a type error, and it is because of we are returning stuffs. So to just easily get rid of this error, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop returning anything, because I'll have to define the type, so I don't really have time for that. So I'll just return for the title. If there's no title, I'll just return back. And then for this, there's no need to return success. What I'll just do, I'll just revalidate. That means I'll just refresh the home page. So revalidate part and then refresh the home page just like this, and I'll save. And let's see if I'm going to still get that error. Let's see. Yeah, so it's gone. So now I think we are done with the server action. Let's check if it is going to work. Yeah, let's check. Let me refresh. Yeah, so new to do. Let's say read a book and then click on add. Yeah, so it went away. Let's check our database. Refresh. And we should see 2 to-dos. Yeah, we should see 2 to-dos. Yeah, as you can see, read a book completed false. So you can see there are different ways that we can perform server functions in Next.js. We can either use route handlers or we can use server actions. So it depends on what you want to achieve. You can use anyone. I don't know. I prefer using route handlers, to be honest. It is the way I work as a full stack developer. I like using Express route. So being able to do it inside Next.js is something that I like and I prefer. But there are some times where this server action is recommended. So you just need to figure out what is best for you. Currently, Next.js now allows us to run some components on the server and some in the browser. So traditionally, React runs everything in the browser. Like your entire component tree is downloaded, hydrated, and executed client side. But in Next.js App Router, we can now run components either on the server, that is before the HTML we sent to the browser, or on the client, that is after the HTML arrives for interactivity. Yeah, so in Next.js, in the app folder, every component is a server component by default. So now this page is a server component by default. If we go into the about, this page is a server component by default, unless we explicitly say that this should be a client-side component, and we can do that by adding the use client directive at the top. Yeah, so this now is a client component. Now, as everything is client-side component, as everything is server component by default, it means that it runs on the Node.js server, and then it can fetch data directly from the database or read environment variables. And it never gets sent to the browser as JavaScript, and it doesn't have state, use effect, or browser APIs that is use state, use effect. Yeah. So now let me quickly show you something. Right here, this is a server component, I can come in here and say console.log. This will run only on the server. Now if I Ctrl S and Ctrl J, let's see. If I go into the component and let's say I refresh, let's see what is going to happen. Yeah, you can see this. This will run only on the server. Now, this is console.log. Normally in React, it is going to appear in our browser console, but let's check. Let's check if it's going to appear in the browser console. Yeah, so you can see that they mark this as server. So it is forwarded from the logs. It doesn't appear there immediately. This will run only on the server. You can see it is marked as server. But right now, let us go back into this home page and then let's mark it as a client component. Use client and then say that this is going to run on the client and save it. Now let's check. Let's refresh so that it's going to recompile. And you can see this will run only on the client. It is not marked as a server component, and yeah, you can see it. So that is the difference. So there's a server component and there is a client component. So a server component is great for performance. It has smaller JavaScript bundles and it has built-in data fetching. The only issue with server component is that it's not really an issue, is that it doesn't have state and no use effects, and then we cannot have event handlers like on click and stuff like that. Yeah, so client component is the normal React component that you have been working with if you're a React developer. And like I said before, to make your component a client-side component in Next.js, you have to mark it with this use client directive at the top. Yeah, so a client component can use hooks, which is use state, use effects. It can use browser APIs like window, like document.add, whatever, can handle interactivity. And the downside is that it cannot access server-side only code like database query or the file system, and it runs fully on the browser, so it increases the JavaScript bundle size. And they can also work together. So I don't know if I explained this properly. Yeah, so I think that is just the major things you need to know about server and client-side components. Alright, so this video will not be complete if we don't talk about layouts in Next.js. So in Next.js, layout is like a React component that wraps pages and other nested routes to share the same UI or to share the same state between them. You can think of it like a persistent wrapper for pages in a route segment. So unlike in plain React, when you might manually wrap pages in layout, Next.js layouts are automatically applied by the framework based on the file structure. All right, so right now what we have, we have a root layout here, and you can see it. Let me show you. Now you can see it here, layout.csx. Now this is the base of our application. Now these children you see here is this page that we have here, this home page, and other stuff are inside. If I come in here and add a paragraph, I am a boy, and I save this and go into my component, you are going to see I am a boy at the top. Let me close this. You can see I am a boy. And then if I go into about, even though I didn't add anything to about, you are still going to see I am a boy in about, because it's going to persist the layout throughout all of them. So we use layouts when we want to use components. As you can see, I am a boy in about page. So component like the navigation bar, which is persistent across all pages in our in our application, we can use layouts, or footer, which is persistent as well. And also if you are working with sidebar, you are going to be using layout for sure. So I just wanted to point that out. And then the final thing we'll talk about is SEO. SEO is very, very simple. When working with Next.js, they have done a lot of work for you. So this is a very simple metadata that we can edit. So you can see the title. Let's go back so you see that our title is create next app. You can see it. So in Next.js, you can just come here and call this anything you want. So to do app and save it. And then if you go back, you see that you change to do app. Let it compile. And yeah, you can see to do app. So the SEO is very easy. And there's also dynamic SEO. There's also dynamic SEO, but then I can't give you an example right now. I can't give you an example with this to-do application we made. Yeah. So that's everything you need to know about Next.js. Yeah, it's not really that much. But then if you like my teaching style and probably want me to go deeper, this is just the surface, but you have gotten a really good knowledge. Right now, you can, if you are good with React, with this knowledge, you can start building crazy applications with Next. Yeah. So if you want me to go deeper and probably use a project to teach, because I like teaching with projects, just let me know in the comments. I haven't posted in a while, but I just wanted to drop this one. Yeah, so just let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, let me know as well. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.